All right, I think we're live. I just got my phone off here to the right, making sure that everything looks good. Might have to give this another go. Just want to make sure I can see the comments and everything. But no, I just wanted to have a very quick video. I'm like only half certain what I'm actually going to say, but obviously the thumbnail, kind of talks to side hustles, and this kind of applies to just any kind of side hustle, any side business, or any business in general. Um, you know, I've had a lot of people just with and just for the individuals who are going to be watching this, maybe after the fact or during the live, that don't know me. I'm Walt with Flower City Cards. Run a wholesale program, but have my hands in a lot of different things in the hobby and like the trading card hobby. So we do a lot of like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, Japanese product, things like that. Hopefully one day getting into sports, but I just wanted to get live today and kind of get some thoughts out there, and hopefully it's helpful to some people, and maybe it won't be, but at the end of the day it'll be I think good for me too to just get my thoughts out there. I've been having just a lot of people reach out to me in general. The collectible space, trading card space, has basically been booming over the last, let's call it like 2 months, and you have a lot of people coming in and kind of flocking the scene, because it's kind of easy right now, right? If you can get your hands on product, more than likely the product's going to go up, or you'll be able to flip it relatively quickly, right? If you go to Target, Walmart, you find product of 151, some good sets. It's just kind of easy right now, and I have a lot of people reaching out specifically pertaining to access to the wholesale program, access to distribution, asking about how much we're going to get of different sets. And this isn't pointed towards anyone individually, but it kind of just got me thinking of just kind of how short-term minded a lot of people are, and it's pretty quick and easy to kind of differentiate between those who are really going to succeed and those who are going to kind of struggle, to kind of get rooted in this hobby, and really get rooted in anything, right? Because the short-term mindset, it's not going to allow you to really stay in one place, and it doesn't have to be collectibles, right? It's not going to allow you to stay in one place, get experience from being there, take action, fail a bunch of times, and then actually learn from it. There's just way too many people right now who are just kind of coming in for the quick tendies or the quick flips, and it's been kind of interesting and eye opening. Second time through, because I got into this hobby in 2019, and what I kind of learned over the first 2 years is, you can dive into it, but unless you actually stay in the hobby, and kind of consistently just participate, right? Like just be engaged, like pay attention, just be present, like really, think about what you're doing, think about like, setting goals and seeing how you do, and how your actions allowed you to either meet or fall short of those goals, right? Unless you're doing all that stuff and you're really putting in the effort, you're not going to get anything out of it, right? So garbage in equals garbage out. That's just the way it goes in life. It transcends collectibles. That's just how this works. But yeah, to kind of go further, like a little background on myself. Got back into the hobby in 2019. My background's in mechanical engineering. I went back to school. My company was, I was fortunate enough for my company to pay for my MBA. I went back to MBA school, and I'm kind of the type of person where I kind of always have to be doing something, even though I didn't realize that in myself until I stopped playing sports competitively, because that was really tying up a lot of my time. So I realized really quickly that, like, okay, I've always got to be I've got to always be doing something. I got to be, working towards something. So after the MBA program, it was a duplex. It was a rental property. So I sacrificed time, living like in an area or renting in an area where like all my friends were and they were going to the bars and stuff and having fun. I was staying home. I was saving money, and I was still going out and doing that stuff, but I was obviously saving a boatload of money because I was living in my parents' basement, and they were fine with it. They were pretty good roommates, and we didn't clash or butt heads at all. Um, so we got through the duplex. We kind of renovated one of the sides. I ended up moving into one side, renting out the other. So it was a lot of work. But once that ended, it was kind of like one of these things where, it's like, okay, what's the next thing? And kind of stumbled upon it. So 2019, fast forward to 2019, you know, Thanksgiving, I think it was. Yeah, Thanksgiving, I was home. A bunch of my stuff was still there. I still had some stuff in my parents' basement. I think my bed was still there. So all my stuff was there. I was going through stuff. We were talking about baseball cards because, like, back in the day, baseball cards were like the number one thing we were hooked on. And I came across this little box that said, like, do not throw away on it. And it was like a little iPhone 5. I don't even know what what model of the iPhone it was. With like maybe 20 of my top Pokemon cards at the time. At least I thought they were the top ones. And there was like a Neo Destiny Shining Steelix. There was like some Expedition Hollows, like a Venusaur Hollow. There were some Reverse Hollows. There was like a base set Charizard, a bunch of stuff like that. And I remember just kind of going up and saying, "Oh, I'm gonna probably just see what these are worth. I'm gonna try this thing out called Mercari." So I went up to Mercari, I listed them, and within like the first 5 minutes, I had 10 messages. All of the listings were sold, and everybody was reaching out to me saying, "Hey, do you have more of these? Do you have more of these? Do you have more of these?" And so immediately I was like, "Okay, something's going on." So I deleted all the listings, I canceled all the orders because I didn't know what was going on, and I started to do some research. And I don't know what part of me kind of said, "Hey, go off and maybe look if there's more collections out there or people like myself who don't really know what's going on and are looking to sell collections." And I went on to Craigslist. There was like a $40 listing. Some guy was just selling his collection. And I remember looking back, it was like maybe 400 cards, all hollows, reverse hollows, EXs, and like the EX era. So like we're talking middle 2000s, right? Before Diamond Pearl and right after like WotC, like Sandstorm, Ruby Sapphire. And I remember getting my hands on those, and I was struggling at the time just to spend $40. Like in my mind, I was like torn. I was like, okay, if I spend $40, like, is it even going to be worth it? I wasn't sure. And I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And I got my hands on them. I started to list cards in Mercari, and I was immediately hooked. I mean, within the first couple cards, I made my money back. I didn't really understand the size of the hobby in general, and from there it kind of just took off. And I've since moved away from Mercari, but by the time I had left, I think there was over 1,000 transactions on there and about 50K in sales. So it was just one of those things that I stumbled into. But from there, I kind of I don't know, refound the enjoyment of like the Pokemon space. I liked being a part of it, even though it wasn't like necessarily the same enjoyment as when I was a kid. And I said, "Hey, I want to stick around." And obviously, you go into the 2020 era, 2021, everything kind of boomed, right? And no longer was it easy to go onto Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and all these different platforms and just find collections because people were selling them for cheap and they didn't care what they had and they were just trying to get rid of it. It was somebody would list something and you'd have 10 to 15 people who now understood that Pokemon had value and they were trying to compete with you. So it just got a lot harder to do what I was doing at the time. But I knew that I wanted to stay in the hobby and I wanted to continue doing what I was doing. So I basically moved from there and stumbled upon, basically various sources for wholesaling, specifically like Magic, Pokemon, things like that. And I was doing this for myself. I said, "Hey, I want to stick around in this hobby. I believe in the IP. Pokemon's the number one IP franchise in the entire world, and it's not even close. I believe that this is going to be around long enough to maybe even my grandkids, right? And when they start to kind of grow up and start to enjoy things. So I was kind of looking at it more of like an investment long term, right? I just want to be here and just be around, and at a minimum just pay attention, maybe pick up some sets here and there. And then I started to do that, and then we got in the Scarlet Violet era, and it was kind of hard, like psychologically, it was hard to, pay, 575 to 600 plus for a booster box case and just kind of sit on it as a passive investment. It was difficult for me. I needed a way to kind of subsidize, my cost of getting access to all this product at lower prices. So we, ended up starting a wholesale program in July of 2023. So that was about a year and a half ago. And from there, the first couple months, it was pretty slow. I didn't really know, like I was kind of having internal battles with myself all the time. Like, hey, is this really gonna work? Like, are people gonna want to stick around? And from there, it kind of took off, but I had to set some specific goals for myself that I thought would translate into people signing up and people being engaged, and that kind of started with forming a Discord, forming a community of people who like really, I don't know, care about the hobby and like actually want to be here for more than just like making money, right? They truly enjoy this. Not to say that there's not people around who first and foremost want to make money. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is, right? If you're going to spend your time on something, you better get out of it what you think you're going to get out of it. And for most people, there's some kind of a monetary value attached to that. But anyways, looking forward, forming a Discord was one of those goals. You know, posting content regularly on Instagram, starting an Instagram. That's all stuff that took at least a couple years, right? The Instagram started before the Discord, but those are things that, like, with each post, you're just investing into your future, and you're investing into your brand, and you're investing into yourself. And it took a long time. And now I would think, like, relatively speaking, if I kind of take a step back and look at a high level, I would consider this a success relative to where everything started and what I think it could have been. I think this has kind of surpassed expectations, at least for myself. But there was a lot of hard work that went into it, and there was a lot of like mental battles with myself, spending the time that I was spending to make sure that, like, this was going to continue. So, I guess the whole reason I kind of bring all that up is because I see a lot of people reaching out to me, and the number one kind of mindset, or the number one takeaway I get, is they just want the new sets, right? Oh, when can I get my hands on Rocket? Oh, when can I get my hands on Journey Together? And they fundamentally don't understand how the hobby and the space works. And I mean, that's kind of step one, right? If you're going to get into this, I don't care what it is, right? I know, like, my dad, I'll bring him into this. He actually retired about a year ago ish. He wants to get into kind of making signs and like laser engraving, router, things like that, like making custom signs for people. But he didn't take any actions, and he kind of had a little bit of this analysis paralysis going on. And we would go to like the farmers market every like Christmas time, and we'd see all these people having great products, and people are buying left and right, and everything looks awesome, and that kind of just reinvigorated him every time. But there was no concrete action or steps to kind of move forward and get there. So that's just kind of another example of people looking at how good something is, but not actually taking concrete steps to get there, right? You might look at that Pokemon space, or you might have looked at the Pokemon space in 2023 and said, oh, that'd be cool to get into, but nothing really makes me money right now, right? If I buy this set, I can't make any money on it. And I guess the response to that is, there are ups and downs in this hobby, just like there are anything else. And it's truly those people who have stuck around for, I think if you're here for 3 years or more, you're probably going to catch more than likely a high point and a low point. Maybe you could make an argument that it's 4 or 5 years, but usually 3 years, you're probably going to see both sides of this hobby. And it's just a function of when you get in. But it's just at this point, and this is a little bit of a rant. I get that. There's not really like a concrete, there's not really like a concrete, I guess, flow for this video, but it's just been kind of mind numbing having the same conversations with new people coming into the hobby, or looking for distro access. And you know I I'm very transparent with people. I tell people, hey, if you're not going to spend or commit to this long term, then this is not going to be for you. um, and that's just the way it is. And so I know, John, you just made a comment. So first, two SV sets and watching people around me sell it for under distro prices. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the that's kind of a great example, right? Is you're gonna have to, like, a win might not always look like a monetary gain, right? A win for you, a net win, might be a loss, right? Because you might sell something, but you also gave yourself an opportunity to gain a new loyal customer. That's how you have to look at it, right? And you're building up over time. Like if you have product and you don't think you're going to sell it, or like you want to, let's say you buy 6 cases of something and your goal is to sit on 2 cases but sell the remaining 4, you're still giving yourself an opportunity to have positive experiences with future customers and building a customer base. And that costs money. And that might be in the form of selling things at a slight loss, right? 5-10% loss. I know not everybody understands, or not everybody understands. I know not everybody can necessarily afford that. And I've always preached to, you know, stay within your means and don't overextend yourself and don't over leverage yourself, because as soon as you do that, you're done. It's gonna be way too stressful. You're not gonna have fun. Um, it's just not gonna be worth it. You have to go into it, like I said, going back to goals. You have to set goals. You have to understand your boundaries, right? Where are you working within? Is it going to make sense with the money and the capital you're working with? So these are all things like you're going to have to do for yourself and answer for yourself, and nobody else, like me, right? So when I get questions like this from people, I kind of just scratch my head, because a lot of the questions that I'm being answered, or I'm being asked, can only be answered by the people asking them, because everybody's situation is different. And it kind of makes me lose my mind sometimes, but I'll continue to answer honestly. And I'm going to try to point people in the right direction and do right by people. Yeah, sold stuff for net zero to make repeat customers happy. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. That's what investing in yourself and your business and your brand looks like. That's what you have to do sometimes. And that's what a lot of store owners and LGSs have had to do. And now things are good, and now they're reaping the benefits of the choices they made 2 to 3 years ago. That's just how it works. You cannot jump into this hobby and expect to get 10 cases of prismatic evolutions, right? That's just not how it works. Just because you have money to spend. Oh, well, I get this all the time, right? Oh, I have $15,000, $20,000 to spend on prismatic. What can you get me? It's like, I can't get you anything, because you don't have a reputation here and you don't have a relationship with us or our distribution. That's not how it works. Like, everybody wants it. There's it, as far as I'm concerned, for 2025, there's an infinite amount of money in Pokemon. Infinite amount of money. Like, just because you have 100K or $1 million to spend does not entitle you to product. You were not here unless you find, and I hope everybody does. I hope everybody, like, in the program, outside the program, I hope everybody finds that source, that person who has that connection, that's like gonna allow you to get the product you need. I mean, nobody wants a product shortage by any means. Nobody wants that. I mean, best case scenario would be everybody gets the product they want, and everybody can turn it around from distro pricing and make a little bit of money on release day. But too often that's just not the case, and that's just not how it works. But Fernando, stop being quick on the draw. Yeah, I started my rip and ship about a month ago. I always throw in gifts or extra packs. Yep, that's I do the same thing. I'll buy collections of whatever, and I'll always have some maybe like older cards, XY or earlier. I'll throw in a couple. It's just the fact that you're going above and beyond. It is. I can't tell you guys how easy it is to differentiate yourself. A lot of people are lazy, man. Like it's a lot of people are lazy. They're not willing to go the extra mile. They're not willing to get like good packaging material. And I'm not saying like you need to go out and buy packaging material every time like you want to ship a product, because I think that repurposing packaging is extremely smart and it's good from just a recycling perspective. Um, but like taking the time to make sure like things are packaged properly, safely. It's very, very easy to differentiate yourself in this hobby, right? Write a little message, right? And this applies to everything, right? This is like customer relationship 101, right? Your customer, the only thing you guys should be interested in or concerned with when you make a purchase or someone buys from you is that what is their experience going to look like if I put myself in their shoes, right? What are they going to think of me, and what are they going to think of the transaction that they just had with me and the interaction they just had with me? That's the only thing that should be going through your mind. If that means that, hey, I just sold this product and it's going to cost me $4 or $5, but it's going to cost. I sold it for $4 or $5. It's going to cost me like $3 in shipping material and everything else. And I'm thinking like TCG player at this point. But are you going to skimp on some of the stuff, or are you going to make sure that that customer gets the same treatment as somebody who just spent $100? Like, you should try to be as consistent as possible and just make sure that every opportunity you have to make a customer happy, you're doing your best to make sure they're having a good experience within reason, right? You're not like, I'm not telling you to lose money to make a customer happy, but there are creative ways that you guys can really put yourselves on the next pedestal and above the rest of the competition with next to little effort. It just takes a little bit of thought process and planning up front. So, going back to kind of the original topic of this video, it's like, what do you need to kind of be successful in like any side hustle, right? It doesn't have to just be collectibles. I know we've been kind of rambling on collectibles at this point, but so one of the things that I always go back to that has always stuck out to me, like high school came up in one of my classes, college came up in undergrad, took like a organizational behavior class in MBA school. Internal locus of control, right? And and I will and I'll just pull this up on on the screen here, and you guys let me see here. Technical difficulties here. Okay, you guys can see me. Great. So real quick, internal locus of control, what is that? Refers to the belief that one's own actions and choices primarily determine the outcomes in their life. So essentially, means that they basically feel like they control their destiny. The actions that they're putting forward are directly impacting the outcomes in their life. Meaning that they don't look outside or externally, right? If you have an internal locus of control, it's your actions that impact your life, versus an external locus of control, meaning that you think that people, market conditions, presidents, politicians, it doesn't matter, right? Pick your poison. You believe that no matter what your actions are, you'll never get ahead. You'll never be able to succeed in your side hustle, whatever it is that may be. So I believe that, I believe that wholeheartedly. It's the people that have somewhat strong internal locus of control that tend to just accelerate the whole process of going from starting out to really just getting to a point where their side hustle or their career, or really anything for that matter, gets to a point where they want it to be. And if you are if you played sports or competed at a high level, I think you understand that, and that kind of directly ties to sports, right? And it's, who's putting in the work, um, who's going to be at the gym at 6 a.m., who's going to be the last one there. Um, you know, I always bring up my experiences during wrestling in high school, right? I was a three-sport athlete: baseball, soccer, and wrestling. Wrestling was by far the toughest sport. It's truly a 24/7 sport. Competed at a really good school, was surrounded by a lot of really good wrestlers and really good coaches. And, there's no excuses. It was like when you went out there on the mat, prior to that, leading up, like you had to be prepared a week ahead, right? You couldn't take an hour off and have a cheeseburger from fast food place, miss weigh-in, right? You were constantly thinking about that sport and preparing, and it was all a function of your actions and what you did to prepare for that determined whether or not you were going to beat that guy who wanted to tear your head off in front of hundreds of people, right? That's just how it worked. So I always attribute my sports experiences to giving me kind of that strong internal locus of control, because I really do wholeheartedly believe that it's those people who can really take ownership of their life and their decisions and their actions that are really going to be able to succeed in really anything, right? Because think of it this way: if you let's say try to get product, right? Let's tie this back into Pokemon. Say you try to get product and you're just starting out, it's a bull market, and you can't get product. Well, what's the takeaway from that, right? The takeaway is I didn't get in, number one, at the right time. And number two, I have to kind of learn from this and either, number one, start later and come back when distribution is available to us freely, or number two, I kind of stick it out. I get creative. I search on eBay. I search and shop the local sales, right? The local listings, right? Basically, do whatever you need to do to kind of start up in a bull market, which is basically like paddling up or upstream without or going upstream without a paddle in a canoe. So it's hard work, but it's those people who are going to really look at this and say, okay, it's my job to make sure I have product. It's not, I hear too often like the argument that like LGSs are, they're charging MSRP, they're charging too much, right? Like what's going on with this? Or maybe they're charging over MSRP, right? For Prismatic. That's one of the things we were talking about. We were hearing a lot. And dude, the stores got to make money. I mean, it's capitalism. If something's worth $100, you're not entitled to it at 60. You're not entitled to it at 70. You're entitled to it. I would say just scrap that word entirely. You're not entitled to anything, but the product is worth what the next guy's willing to pay or what you're willing to pay. So you either have to figure out a way to make that work or it's just not going to work. And there's nobody else to blame for that. That's just the way the market is. And you either play by the rules or it's just not going to happen. So I just hear, I hear that a lot from a lot of people. And it's the whole argument that, MSRP and what stores are charging. It's kind of BS because they're the ones that are putting their heads on the line, their necks on the line, and they're taking the risk in owning a business and having rent to pay, right? Having employees to pay. They can do what they want. And just the same as anybody else, right? If you have product and it's worth a certain amount of money, they're allowed to charge whatever they want, and you can vote with your dollars. That's all it comes down to. If you don't like it, just don't buy it. That's what it comes down to. But at the end of the day, tying this back to internal locus control, I mean, you have to do what you have to do in order to achieve the goal that you want to achieve. Nobody else can do it for you. It's not anybody else's fault. So like when you succeed, it's because of your own actions, but when you fail, it's also because of your own actions. And it might not always be fair, but it's just the world we're living in. And you got to kind of find ways to be creative and make it happen. But yeah, and this kind of goes, it's going to be easier for people if we, regardless of what the side hustle or your job is, if you have a more long-term mindset, this is all going to be much, much easier, right? Because you're able to look further out, and your actions are going to have a purpose. There's going to be a purpose behind them, and there's going to be a, you know, light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing, right? You know when you're kind of getting to the point where you need to be. Um, so that's the other thing that, you know, people are not succeeding in this hobby because they just don't have that long-term mindset, and that's partially a cultural thing, right? America in general, we're and I guess that's not necessarily fair. I think it's more of and we could talk about this all day. Um, but I think the whole social media, having an iPhone, having information at your fingertips, having DoorDash, having Grubhub, having things available at your fingertips immediately for instant gratification. That is the type of thing that kind of is driving, I believe, this short-term mindset, because it's all about like, okay, Amazon can have it there in less than 24 hours if you want it, right? So we're just we're so used to not not kind of taking the hard route in life, and you know, kind of looking at those little wins as big wins. It's all about just, okay, instant gratification. When can I get this? When can I make money? So that, you know, that's one of the other things too I wanted to talk about is long term versus short term mindset, and it's those people who have long term mindsets, who are setting goals and really just sticking to it, right? And executing on their goals, that are really gonna kind of come out on top. And again, it's for everything. It's not just for collectibles. It's, you know, if you want to start a landscaping business, if you want to start like a pool cleaning business, it's all the same thing. It's all about, you know, starting with what you have, not over leveraging yourself, incrementally building it up. I mean, this is how people truly make it. If you're truly starting out from scratch, like very rarely, and we see it all over on social media too, and it doesn't help. We see these like quick overnight success stories that just aren't real. I mean, they're real and they happen, but that's like the 1% of the 1% of the 1% that happens to. Um, so yeah, just, you know, if you're doing anything in any side hustle, just make sure you have a long-term outset, you're committed, and that you like it, right? That you enjoy it. Like, you're not going to have a long-term outlook on something if you don't enjoy what you're doing, or you don't enjoy the space or the people you're around, and the customers and all that. Like, you have to enjoy all of that stuff. So I think that's also going to, you know, it's going to be helpful too, to make sure that, you know, whatever it is you're doing, you know, you're going to stick with it and you're not going to bail. And the other thing too, you know, thinking back on, uh, you know, my background in the first like 10 minutes of this video, one of the things that I did was I was dynamic, right? Started out kind of just flipping cards. Then I got into, you know, trying to just buy and hold product. That didn't really work out for me, or it got to a point where it just didn't work in general because of the market changes, and we turned to kind of a bear market after the end of Sword and Shield and Crown Zenith and Silver Tempest. And then from there we got into, okay, now I'm running this wholesale program. And then there was kind of another step in there too, where I was kind of worried to turn it on because I didn't know if I had enough time. And I started doing the Instagram advertising, which kind of blew it out of the water in terms of what I thought was possible with that. But there were steps in this hobby for myself, to get to where I am today. And I'm not saying that we're done and you know, everything's peachy and we're done growing, because, you know, there's still, I think, a lot that we want to do and we want to continue to do and get better. And I think once that desire burns out, I think you're basically destined to fail. But yeah, that's, you know, you have to stay dynamic. If you're not dynamic and you think one way is the only way, then you're pretty much going to set yourself up for failure. So yeah, it's just you know, this was a video that really was driven by just a lot of people messaging me, not wholesale program specific, but, you know, like Instagram, people join the Discord, don't really understand what it is to really just kind of put in the time, and they're just really looking for those quick flips. And if you do want to make those quick flips, I mean, that's your decision. But there's a difference between making quick flips and then making a business out of it. right? If you want to make the quick flips, the Tops, or not Tops, I'm sorry, Target, Walmart, Costco, BJ's, like all these different places, like that's kind of the best thing that I can say for you is you know, those are going to be kind of your places to look for, kind of what you're looking to get out of it. But if you're really trying to start a store, a store, an online business, um, you're trying to do you're trying to do vending, right? Physical vending. Then I would suggest like truly diving in, doing research. I mean, there are probably at this point millions of YouTube videos um, available at your fingertips from people like um, Nostalgianomics, Pokemon Knowledge. I could go on and on. Those are two of the guys that I listen to or watch the most. But um, Alpha Investments. I there's just so many opportunities out there, and I want to see people succeed, and that's one of the really amazing things about this hobby is the next guy to the left and the right of you, you can pull them up and watch them succeed without any of your business being impacted whatsoever because the hobby's that big, right? So that's one of the really awesome things about this hobby is, there's some satisfaction, full transparency. There's some satisfaction seeing other people in the wholesale program on Instagram, wherever, succeed because you kind of helped them along and you kind of pulled them forward. Because I know when I was new, I had a group that I was lucky enough to be a part of that they kind of helped me out a little bit when I had questions and they were patient with me. So I always try to pay that back in any way I can. But so yeah, I mean, I'm probably gonna wrap this up soon. This has been a longer rant than I thought it was gonna be, but at the end of the day, what I believe, I don't know what I believe it takes. I guess at the end of the day is a strong internal locus of control, right? So you control your own actions. If you fail, it's your own problem, right? Like try to always, even if something is blatantly not your fault, try to find ways to look at what happened and figure out how you could have done something better, right? As a result of your own actions, right? So that's all I can really say is you just take ownership and have a strong internal locus of control and always assume it's on you. And the second thing, and really third thing, long-term mindset, right? Make sure that you actually like being here. Make sure you actually like this, or else you're just going to get burned out. Like you're not going to enjoy doing this if you don't truly enjoy like the cards and the hobby and I don't know, just the day-to-day grind of like maybe packaging up orders. It's not for everybody. So make sure that you really enjoy it. And maybe sometimes the best thing to do is just jump in and start doing it, and then you'll get a feel for it. But that also applies to any other side hustle in general, right? Anything else. If you don't enjoy it, just don't waste your time because it's not going to be worth it and you're probably not going to stick with it. And then finally, just again, being dynamic. I think being dynamic is important if you really want to stick around in a hobby. Um, it, it's a huge benefit to be able to, I guess, mentally tell yourself, hey, this isn't working. You failed at this. Now let's start to move into this and try this out instead. That's a really tough thing to do. It's some people struggle because the ego gets in the way, and it's a conversation between you and yourself. But sometimes you just got to kind of let things go and move on to the next thing and try it. And if that doesn't work, move on to the next thing. The quicker you can fail, the quicker you can learn, which means the quicker you're going to succeed going forward to whatever that is. And maybe the goal changes. So having a dynamic goal, and being able to kind of adjust your goals periodically throughout the year is also going to help too. So it's really those three things at a high level that I think, based on my experiences and what I've seen and some of my own successes and my own failures, that's what I believe is really going to propel people forward in whatever side hustle they want to do. And I kept it high level on purpose because I want it to be applicable to more than just collectibles. But yeah, so that's really all I had for today. Again, it was just a really, really long rant. I've been getting pummeled with questions, and I wanted to get out and just kind of get my thoughts out there. So anyways, I appreciate you guys sticking around and and listening to me rant for this long. But yeah, as always, until next time, guys, I'll see you then.